Imagine a magical boat. You are sitting in the eye of the hurricane, steering it along its track. Now look out the right side of your windshield. Those winds are sweeping past your bow, running the same way you are going, so your speed gets added to theirs. They are the strongest winds in the storm, and they are not just blowing. They are pushing the ocean ahead of them. Those are the power brokers of storm surge. Take that boat west into the Gulf, a drowned plane, 60 feet of water 40 miles out. Wind grips only the surface and shallow water tilts. The pile builds for 100 miles. Now take it east. The Atlantic is a knife edge, 600 feet of water 3 miles off the beach. Down there the wind is only a skin on it. The surge stays small, but the waves arrive unbroken. Same hurricane, same right side, both coasts. Wide and shallow makes surge. Deep and narrow makes waves. The ocean floor decides. One peninsula, two ocean floors, two entirely different attacks. This is a forensic look back at 7 years of them. Is this about you? 15 minutes from the beach and below 15 feet. You are coastal. Landfall is not the test. Idalia drowned Crystal River and never came close. 25 feet of dune, cut back 100 feet in one night. The cut face in that dune is a measurement. Everything above the line was hammering, and in June, NOAA redrew Florida's surge maps for every category. 6 storms, 1 coast, 7 years. 2 of them never made landfall anywhere near the towns they flooded. 9 zones from the Alabama line to Marco Island, the whole coast. Look how many of them were hit twice. 5 worst. 3 of them are the same storm, the same county, the same afternoon. Ian took 4 of the 5 worst zones in a single afternoon. Landfall at Cayo Costa put its strongest winds directly on the Lee County Islands, 10 to 15 feet standing above the ground. That is the record. Now, 3 parts. The Beast of the East, a storm that never needed surge. The beast that went up a river and flooded Jacksonville. And the finale, the 8 beasts of the West. November 9th, 2022. Hurricane Nicole, coming at Florida's east coast. 71 miles an hour. That is barely a hurricane at all. It is the storm you do not board up for, the one you stay home and watch from the window. Nobody evacuated for Nicole. It came ashore in the dark, down near Vero Beach, and then it kept going inland and left. By sunrise, the storm was gone. This is what the ocean was still doing at 7:30 the next morning. Daytona Beach shores, 100 miles north of where Nicole came in. This was filmed by somebody who lives here, from a window several floors up. No camera crew, just a resident standing at the glass, watching it happen to their own street. That pool deck is 11 feet above sea level. It was built where nobody believed the ocean could reach. By the time this was filmed, the ground underneath it was already gone. Here's the part that catches people, and it caught this whole coastline. The worst of the bashing happened hours earlier, in the dark, while Nicole was still offshore. That is when the dune went. But the storm leaving did not end it. The high tide came up afterward, after the center had already moved inland. So the sea got a second run at a coast that had nothing left to defend it with. Two poundings, one in the dark, one in the daylight, and look at what is doing the work. There is no wall of water here, no wave you could point at, just the ocean arriving over and over again, taking a little more each time. 10,000 punches. That That deck did not flood. It fell. This is what makes the Atlantic side different. Houses on this coast are rarely drowned. They are undermined. The sand walks out from beneath them, and the structure follows it down. The water never even got inside. All of that from a Category 1. The smallest storm on the scale, arriving at the wrong hour, on a coast where the seafloor drops away fast and the waves do the damage instead of the flood. Now look at the other coast. And here's the strangest part. 6 weeks earlier, to the day, Ian had already whipped this same shoreline. Oblique waves running south. Ian was also 75 miles an hour. Same coast, same wind speed, no run-up. The ocean never climbed the beach the way it did for Nicole. The same beach, 6 weeks earlier. Hurricane Ian, on its way out of Florida, crossing Daytona at 75 miles an hour. Nicole's exact wind speed. But watch which way the water is running. Ian was heading north, so its winds drove the waves south. 42 days later, Nicole came in from the south and drove them back the other way. Same beach, same wind speed, opposite directions. Only one of them took the dune. The wind decides which way the waves go. The water level decides whether they can reach anything. 048. Ian's waves ran along the beach. Nicole's arrived on top of a raised ocean, high enough to touch the dune face. 6 miles south of Daytona Beach, there is a small place called Wilbur by the Sea. It is one road wide. On the morning of November 10th, 2022, it was still there. By that afternoon, this is what was left of it. Look at what the house is standing on. Nothing. The sand that held it up is out in the water somewhere. Every one of these homes was built on the Atlantic Ridge, the natural sand dune that runs down this coast. 18 feet of it went away in a single night. That is a swimming pool deck hanging in the air. The pool was in the backyard. The backyard was the beach. Nobody moved the house closer to the ocean. The ocean came and took the ground out from under it. Nicole was only a Category 1, 75-mile-an-hour winds. Almost nothing here was broken by wind. Every bit of this was done by water, by waves that finally had a straight run at the dune because the beach in front of it was already gone. Front doors that now open onto a cliff. Bedrooms with the floor gone. These are not condemned buildings waiting for a bulldozer. 48 hours earlier, people were living in them. Here is the part that matters if you own something on the coast. The dune is not decoration. It is the last thing standing between the Atlantic and the road. Once the waves reach the face of it, the dune does not wear away slowly. It falls in big pieces and it falls fast. Look where the surge line stops. That dark cut in the sand is the high water mark. Above it, the houses are untouched. Below it, there's nothing left to touch. A difference of a few feet of elevation decided which homes were still standing at sunset. The blue line is where the ocean stopped, not where anyone decided it should stop, where it ran out of hill to climb. 22 feet above sea level, everything below that line is gone. Just south of here, the state has a survey line on a dune where nobody ever built. Same night, same waves, no houses. The ocean took 100 feet of it. The dune was the seawall. Nobody built it, and nobody can rebuild it in a season. Irma was a different animal. The others came in off the water, hit one stretch of coast, and moved on. Irma came ashore in the Keys and drove straight up the middle of the state. Watch it. It never turns out to sea. It stays on land the whole way. For the first time in most people's memory, there was no safe side of Florida. Now stop watching the eye. Look at the top right of the screen, at the corner of the state where the St. Johns River meets the Atlantic. That is a mouth, and Irma is about to blow into it. Nothing about the storm looks dangerous up there. It is weakening. It is 200 miles away. Keep your eye on that river mouth anyway. That is where Irma did the thing nobody had planned for. Along the St. Johns River at the I-295 Buckman Bridge, tides are described using several standard datums, all measured here in feet relative to NAVD 88. The animation you're seeing will carry you from these everyday tide levels up to the record high reached during Hurricane Irma. Mean higher high water, or MHHW, is the average of the higher of the two daily high tides over a 19-year cycle, and at Buckman, it is about plus 0.39 feet NAVD. Mean high water, MHW, is the average of all daily high tides, at roughly plus 0.35 feet NAVD. Mean tide level, MTL, is the midpoint between the average high and average low tides, here about minus 0.09 feet NAVD. Mean low water, MLW, is the average of all daily low tides, approximately minus 0.54 feet NAVD. During Hurricane Irma on the morning of September 11, 2017, the Buckman Bridge tide gauge recorded a record-breaking storm tide. Water levels reached about 5.65 feet NAVD, more than 5 feet above the typical higher high tide here. This Irma peak is the highest water level of record at the I-295 Buckman Bridge station and provides a critical... Here's the part that catches people out. Every creek in Jacksonville drains into the St. Johns. That is the whole design. But a creek can only drain downhill. And when the river itself is jacked up, there is no downhill left. So the flood does not stop at the riverbank. It walks backwards, up the creeks, mile after mile, into neighborhoods that are not on the river at all, and were never told they were at risk. This is San Pablo Road, backing up at Christopher Creek. The ocean is 9 miles away, and this is not the river. The river simply rose until the creek could not empty into it anymore. Nobody living here had any idea the water could get this high. Irma's rotation drove the Atlantic straight into the mouth of the St. Johns. The river crested at 5.5 feet in downtown Jacksonville, the highest ever recorded there, beating Hurricane Dora, and every foot at the mouth raised the water for everybody upstream. That was a weakening storm passing to the west. Here is what the new maps say a direct hit would do. Category 1, and the water is already in Jacksonville. By Category 3, it is past Green Cove Springs. By Category 5, it runs the whole river, past Palatka, past Satsuma, toward Lake George, 60 miles from the sea. And that river mouth has just been dredged from 40 feet to 47. A deeper channel is a better door. It lets the ships in. It also lets the ocean in. And the ocean does not stop at the dock. 2 years after Irma, this came up the same coast. Dorian, a Category 5. 185-mile-an-hour winds. The strongest storm ever to strike the Bahamas. Florida's east coast evacuated. And it did almost nothing. 1 to 3 feet of water on the beaches. 4.25 feet at Fernandina, at the top of the river. Because it stayed offshore, and it never turned its back into the river mouth. Strength is not the thing. Direction is the thing. Between 2018 and 2024, 8 hurricanes came ashore on the west coast of Florida. Not 8 in a century, 8 in 6 years. Some were monsters. One was barely a hurricane at all. It made almost no difference to the people who were flooded. Watch the water, not the wind. Before we count them, look at what one of them did. Estero Island, Fort Myers Beach. 9 in the morning and the Gulf is already coming across it. By noon there is no dry ground left. None, 20 to 3 in the afternoon. 11 feet 8 inches of water, standing on the street. And that is the calm number. Now the waves on top of it. 14 feet 1 inch, 2 feet 3 inches more, on every street you just watched go under. That was one storm. There were 8. Estero Boulevard at Avenue C, Fort Myers Beach. 5 feet. The water is at the curb. 10 inches over the road and it is already moving. 10 feet. The cars are gone. 6 feet of water standing on the boulevard. 20 to 3 in the afternoon. 13 feet. 9 feet of water over the road. This is Ian. 30 seconds later. 15 and a half. 11 and a half feet over the road. That is what took the buildings. 1 corner, 5 levels. Everything above the 3rd panel actually happened. On a Wednesday afternoon, in about 6 hours. That is the whole storm, on one street. October 2018. Michael. It went from a tropical storm to a Category 5 in about 2 days, and there was no time left to argue about it. It came ashore at Mexico Beach with 14 feet of water. Mexico Beach, Port St. Joe, Panama City. 2 years later, Sally, only a Category 2, and that was the problem. It crawled in at the Alabama line at walking pace, and then it stopped. Pensacola and Perdido Key sat under 5 to 7 feet of gulf for the better part of a day. November 2020. By the time Eta reached Tampa Bay, it was not even a hurricane anymore. It still pushed salt water up through the storm drains and into the streets of St. Petersburg, Gulfport, and Longboat Key. The category tells you about the wind. It says nothing about where the water goes. September 28th, 2022. Ian, Category 4, at Cayo Costa, in the middle of the afternoon. Fort Myers Beach and Estero Island, 10 to 15 feet of water. Sanibel, 9 to 13. Naples and Cape Coral, 6 to 9. Hold on to this one. We are coming back to it. "11 months after Ian, Adelia, Category 3, straight into Keaton Beach at dawn. 7 to 12 feet through Steinhatchee and Horseshoe Beach. Cedar Key went under. Remember those 3 names. "1 year later, almost to the day, Debbie. Only a Category 1 this time. Same coast, same towns. Keaton Beach, Steinhatchee, Cedar Key. Flooded again by a storm half the strength before the first repairs were finished. Nobody calls a Category 1 a beast. That is exactly why it gets people." Then Helene. 15 feet of water at Keaton Beach, the worst that coast has ever recorded. And 200 miles south, records broken in Tampa Bay. Treasure Island, St. Pete Beach, Clearwater. 13 days after Helene, Milton came ashore at Siesta Key. Sarasota, Venice, Manasota Key. 13 days. The debris from the last storm was still stacked at the curb when the next one arrived to collect it. October 2025. Category 5 into Jamaica, 897 millibars. 7 to 11 feet of surge east of the eye at Black River.
I'm now walking through the town center. These are the businesses. Well, this should be the road through the town. Yeah. These are the businesses. Melissa actually opened the doors to all the businesses. So there's just wide scale, people just going through, taking what they want. Because the hurricane had just run through the businesses with ease. So this is the middle of the town now, the business center of the town. That's Digicel. That's Digicel. Nothing is left. Nothing is left. These business people feel it. Christmas coming up and everybody is preparing. Come on, time people in place, brother. Oi! Let the people in place, man. I don't know, no need for the up there, you know. No need for the up there. Come down, up there. Yeah. This used to be a building. I'm telling you now that I'm in the heart of business hub of Black River. These are the businesses in Black River. When they tell us that Black River is flat, you might not believe or understand what I am saying. This is a picture of Black River. I'm standing in the middle of the town center. This is the road, and these are all the items from the businesses where the sea just walk through the businesses and dump them on the road. So that's from one side to the other. From one side to the other. See? See? The storm just went through it, ripped aside everything that could be ripped through. Tore aside everything that could be torn through. People are kind of helping themselves. It's kind of sad as police there. We're going to tell them, say, don't do it. Because it won't make 1 ounce of a sense. Because the place is... I'm going to show you the back of the building. I'm going to show you the back of the building. Because this is the back of the building to the sea. Look at this. So just in case you can't enter from the front, look at this. This is the back of the building to the sea, and this is concrete. The storm and seawater actually lit down the concrete wall and walk right through the buildings. Literally walk through the building. So it's safe to say that the sea was this high. We're talking about 13-foot storm surge. It was this high. Not even the strong, firm concrete structure could have withstand the force of the storm. Everything. Fireman.
Yes, sir.
Boy. Everything completely flattened. Right? And that's the story for most of the businesses that face the sea. Flattened. Seriously flattened. See there? Wall, you're looking right through, straight through the walls to the sea. Where the sea just walk through. So I'm actually walking on the rubbles in the town right now. At the road this I should be walking on is actually rubbles. These are all so that's one of the ATMs. Somebody tried to get in there, but these things are strongly built. So I'm only then trying to get to, but I couldn't get to. Alright, this is it. People's businesses. The things inside the business. We're straight out. Is it? Is it? This is it? Town of Black River. Windows smashed, buildings flat, everything. People are just helping themselves. This building was here. So now I'm looking straight through where the building was onto the sea. See, all you're looking now at rubbles. Flat. See them there? This is Black River. This is Black River. This is what's left of it. Well, I keep saying what's good is that there are no loss of life reported so far. Huh? But this is it. People are just in the town helping themselves to what's left of the hurricane ravished goods. Yeah, that's a business. You're looking straight through it, straight through it onto the sea. The sea just walk through. So now a lot of thoughts are going to be put in place in terms of how Black River is rebuilt. Yeah. This is Quartz. Look at the Quartz sign. That's a pretty sign up there. Now we're going down to this Quartz store. Look at the store. Look at the store. That's straight through the store you're looking and into the sea. Yeah? And that's basically the situation. We're going towards now the Black River Bridge that leads you over the Black River. See? Look at the bridge. So there's no entrance and no exit. So we're basically in the town of Black River spinning. Going around the rubbles and spinning. Right? It's rough here. It's rough. Really rough. Really. What ATM did this somewhere about this? Which part is it there again?
Right there, Scotiabank.
Oh, that's so? Okay. Alright, gentle people.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Now only all are